Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about Asia's worst natural disaster in last 500 to 600 years. What were the causes behind this disaster? What has been the impact of these disasters and how the government later on have used their potential to actually overcome the disasters and disaster related casualty. So first of all, the first disaster we can talk about is the Great Famine that struck the northern region of China during the time of Qing dynasty somewhere between 1876 to 1879. This particular famine actually has resulted due to the continuous drought that resulted into the massive crop failures. And the extent of this famine we can understand if you look at the casualty, human casualty, because directly or indirectly this famine has caused loss of 9 million lives in China. So if we try to understand about this particular famine, it is believed by climatologists today that it was partially at least driven by the ENSO phenomena, which is short of El Nino Southern Oscillation phenomena. So basically, El Nino Southern Oscillation phenomena refer to a situation where we see the reversal in the movement of the atmospheric current and the ocean current around the Pacific Ocean. If we talk about during the normal situation, in normal situation, basically, we have higher temperature near the Australian coast, thus warm air rises here that causes condensation, cloud formation and rainfall along the eastern or western coast of the Pacific Ocean, including China. In the same time, on the South American side, we have the downward movement of the wind that causes creation of a high pressure belt that actually causes drought-like situation. However, during El Nino years, the pressure belt actually shifts and we have low pressure in the central Pacific and we have high pressure in the western Pacific as well as the eastern Pacific. And it is due to this region, what we observe is we have increased convection, heavy rainfall in the central equatorial Pacific. On the other hand, the western part of the Pacific as well as the eastern part of Pacific, due to the descent of air, experiences drought-like situation due to the absence or very low amount of rainfall. So this change in pressure between one part of the Pacific to the other part of the Pacific is called a southern oscillation, and the result of this change leads to development of a warm water current, and that is called as El Nino phenomena. So in combined form, ENSO phenomena causes drought in the Asian regions. And that is the reason behind the drought or the Great Famine that resulted due to this drought in the 1876 to 1879 period. If you try to understand the areas that has been affected in this particular drought, this was the area that you can see from here. This yellow region was the worst affected region, and especially the cities such as Shaanxi, Hainan, Hubei, Sichuan, Hunan, and even Shandong region were the worst affected cities of this region. At that time, during the time of Qing dynasty, we can see the entire China can be divided into three major regions. One on the northeastern side, which is called as Inner Mongolia, in which we have a Manchuria, which was a very important region because it was largely contested between three powers historically. All the three powers were Russia, China, and Japan. At some point in time, they wanted to have a strong hold of Manchuria because of the rich coal deposits that is found here. Apart from that, the other region was what we call as the Outer Mongolia, which largely includes mountains, deserts, and plateau region of Tibet. And then we have the northern China, which was largely populated, densely populated region due to its fertile valleys and conducive climate as well as their coastal locations. Similarly, the second worst disaster was again something that was witnessed in the central part of China, which is flooding disaster when the flood occurred in the Yellow River of China. The flood actually occurred somewhere between the month of May to August in the year of 1931, and as a direct and indirect result of this flood, almost 4 million people lost their life. If you try to understand the impact of this flood on the farmland, it is believed that almost 20 million acres of farmland along the Yellow River was completely inundated, completely flooded, that lead to a worst crisis in the agriculture. Not only that, the flooding was also very extensive in the Yangtze River because Yangtze River burst its banks, started to overflow and caused also drowning of large population of China. If you try to understand the region which was impacted by this flood, this was the central part of China, where we can see from the south we have the Yangtze River that is coming all the way, and then finally it is draining into China Sea in the Shanghai, and then you have the Yellow River that is coming from the north. So this entire area that is sandwiched between the Yangtze River and the Yellow River was heavily affected by flood. The impact of this flood we can understand is because what has happened is the preceding years, 3 preceding years were drought years, and due to this drought, the soil in the river basin become very hard, obviously because of the heavy temperature, high temperature of the sun. And due to this wicked hard soil, when the excess amount of water started to flow, the soil was not able to absorb this runoff, and this runoff was also very high in volume because of record setting snow that fell in the last winter. And in the summer, when the snow started to melt, suddenly there is a huge influx of water and the soil is not able to absorb all the water. So what will happen? Naturally, the river will overflow its banks, causing flood. Not only that, on the top of meltwater that was being supplied to these rivers, the monsoon rains also were very heavy that particular year. And not only that, even this year was actually the year witnessed seven typhoons. Typhoons are like, we can say it is a tropical cyclones in the West Pacific Ocean. The cyclones are known by the name of the typhoons along the coast of China and Japan. So the typhoons, the combined effect of the typhoons and also the meltwater from the snow as well as the heavy rainfall that lashed the China in the monsoon season were the main reason responsible for the great famine in the Yellow River. The third worst disaster that we can see is again earthquake that happened in the Shaanxi region of China, which again is situated in the central part of China. If you look at this particular map of China, it is this red region, which is the Shaanxi region, which actually has witnessed, which is believed to be the worst earthquake of the world. Now, this earthquake is also called as Jiangxing Great Earthquake, which actually took place in the month of January 23, 1556, and it is believed to be the deadliest earthquake ever recorded. However, what we have to understand here, the earthquake was not very high on magnitude. In the present time, if you try to understand this, the value of this earthquake on the Richter scale, it was merely 7.9. If you try to compare this with the earthquake that has caused tsunami in the 2004, that was almost 9.4, 9.5 magnitude of the earthquake. So compared to that, this earthquake was a mild one. However, the disaster or the casualty that this earthquake has caused was very high. The reason behind this is because this area is densely populated region of China, obviously because of fertile regions, alluvial soil is there because of the flow of the rivers, and also since this area is continuously, we can say a continuous flow of rivers has caused a kind of instability in the soils of the central China. So first, the dense population, second, unstable soil. This caused a loss of almost 830,000 people's life in this particular earthquake. If we try to look at the causes of this earthquake, basically we can understand that this happened because the Shaanxi region is actually lying in the fault zone between the Ordos block and the Kinling orogenic belt. And whenever we have the movement or the push that is happening between the Indian plate and Eurasian plate, this push actually causes some sort of disturbance among all this rift system that causes actually what we can say violent shaking and vibration below this rift, and that was responsible for the earthquake here. Second point, what we have to understand here, at that this earthquake is happening in the 16th century, more precisely in 1556, and that time in this region of China, people were not living in normal houses as of now. People were largely living in houses that are called as yaodongs. Yaodongs basically were a kind of cave-like houses, as you can see from this particular picture, which was built in the loose, lowest soil deposited by the river system. So first of all, obviously any kind of earthquake that will happen here, even if it is having low magnitude, can actually cause a huge catastrophe because the collapse of the entire building, collapse of the entire structure, because the soils are not very hard. It is not a plateau, it is not rocks, but rather it is the compacted sediments. So this is the reasons why the earthquake killed so many people in this particular region. The next disaster which we can talk about is cyclonic disaster that struck the Bangladesh. At that time it was called as Pakistan in the November 12th, 1970. The cyclone was called as Bhola cyclone. However, it is believed to be the deadliest tropical cyclone that has been recorded in the Bay of Bengal region till now. Due to result of the cyclone, it is believed that somewhere between 500,000 to 1 million people drowned in the Bangladesh. And as far as the United States Geological Survey, this is a category 3 storm similar to the Hurricane Katrina that actually was witnessed few years back in the USA, that also has caused massive loss of life and the infrastructure. Due to this storm, actually we can see actually it is believed that 10 meters storm surge were created. So you have waves that are coming from the Bay of Bengal, you have the waves that is coming from the ocean, which is as high as 10 meters in height, that will completely inundate the coastal areas, will cause direct drowning the people, and will also cause collapse of the entire infrastructure and building facilities in the coastal regions. It is believed that to some extent the apathy of the Pakistani government, because if you remember during the time of 1970s, the Bangladesh has not become a nation. It is still what we can call as East Pakistan, and the main center of government was in West Pakistan. So the response of the Pakistani government was very, we can say, slow. That also has caused more loss of the life of the people, and this actually caused discontentment among the population of East Pakistan, and that is when they started to support strongly the independence of the country of Bangladesh. And thus, in following year 1971, following the intervention and the support of the Indian government, the Bangladesh was liberated from the Pakistan. So that was the Bola cyclone. If you try to understand the route map of this Bola cyclone, this you can see, this is the white line that is tracing the route of Bola cyclone. Actually, it started somewhere in the Bay of Bengal, then it moved in the eastern direction, impacting the Chittagong and Dhaka regions of the Bangladesh. If you try to understand the cyclonic regions of the world, so this on the map world, we can see the yellow regions are the one where we can see the maximum development of the tropical cyclone. Tropical cyclone basically are referred to such cyclone which originate between 10 degree north to 10 degree north to 30 degree north and 10 degree south to 30 degree south on both sides of the hemisphere. These cyclones are called as cyclones in Indian Ocean, typhoons in the Pacific Ocean, and hurricanes in the Western Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific Ocean. The next disaster is also a cyclonic disaster that unfortunately struck Andhra Pradesh region of India, the coastal city of Coringa. This happened on the November 25th, 1839, when the cyclone that is also called as Coringa cyclone is also believed to be the second most deadly cyclone storm ever recorded in the Bay of Bengal region. And the impact of the cyclone was so strong that it is believed that a wave as high as 40 feet surged into the low-lying coastal regions of the Coringa that has actually caused complete decimation of the coastal city, port city of Coringa. Not only that, 25,000 boats and ships were damaged that were lying in the coastal region, and approximately 300,000 people died directly or indirectly due to this particular storm. The next disaster on our radar is the Indian Ocean tsunami, which is the more recent disaster comparatively, which affected 14 countries situated on the rim of Indian Ocean region. The impact of the disaster was so huge that actually it began somewhere off the coast of Indonesia, but its impact can be felt as far as the eastern African coast of Somalia. The event happened in the month of December, 26 December 2004, mainly due to the 9.1 magnitude earthquake that occurred off the coast of Indonesia, and as a result of this, somewhere between 230,000 and 260,000 people have died. The worst affected country obviously was Indonesia, where it actually has seen the loss of almost 150,000 people. In India, it was the Tamil Nadu region, the state of Tamil Nadu, that was worst affected state. So if we try to understand the genesis of this particular tsunami, we can see that actually in the Bay of Bengal region, we have a lot of different plates. The one such larger plate is the Indian plate. Then in the south, we have the Australian plate, and lying to the east, we have a small plate that is a kind of microplate called as Burmese microplate, because Burma was the older name of the Myanmar, and this plate is situated along the Myanmar axis. So basically on the 26th December 2004, what has happened is that the Indian plate is continuously pushing toward the Burmese plate, and thus suddenly there is subduction of Indian plate below the Burmese plate by 10 meter that actually caused the Burmese plate to rise up by 20 meter, and the sudden rise of 20 meter has caused a huge wave of tsunami, and this actually was occurring almost to a distance or length of 1000 km from north to south, and that is why we have gigantic tsunami wave that is spreading around and affecting all the countries in the Indian Ocean region, such as India, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and then even to some extent to the eastern coast of Africa. The last disaster which we are going to talk about is again an earthquake that happened in the Tangshan region of the northeastern China. It happened in the month of July 1976, where almost the 7.8 magnitude of earthquake had struck this particular region, and this is something that is situated about 180 kilometers east of the capital city of China, that is Beijing. The impact of earthquake was so humongous that it directly caused the loss of life of almost 500,000 to 700,000 people. The worst reason why the human casualty was so higher is because of the soil liquefaction. Because what happened when the 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck this region, as we know that this region, again northeastern region, is made up of lowest deposits, fertile alluvial deposits. The soil liquefaction happened. That means soil started to behave like a liquid layer, and that is why all the buildings that have been built on this particular soil layer, almost 85% of the buildings of the Tangshan region collapsed. And that the collapsed building is what we can say is largely responsible for the loss of life. If we try to understand the region where this earthquake has happened, so this we can see is our Kiangshan region, and here we have the North China Craton. So again, what basically is happening is that continuously the Indian plate is pushing toward the Eurasian plate, and due to this we have a lot of stress that is developing all across these cratons, all across the small plates of India, China, Nepal and the surrounding regions. And whenever we have a sudden displacement of these plates and rocks with respect to each other, or we have a sudden break in the rock system, it causes a huge or high magnitude of the earthquake in this particular area. And that is why we can understand that the epicenter of the earthquake, that is the point directly above the focus where actually disturbance has happened, is Tangshan, and then the impact of earthquake then spreads out and become lesser and lesser. So that is all about the major disasters that has been experienced by the Asian region, largely China, India and the other Southeastern countries in the last 400-500 years. I hope you understood the concept behind them. If you like the video, please hit the like button, share it with fellow aspirants, as well as subscribe to our channel for more such content. Thank you very much.